is the appointed time, and we have already formed a quorum. So this is the video conferencing of the panel on housing. First of all, I'd like to remind members that when you speak, you will have to turn on the video function, and also you would also have to unmute yourself. And also, for those who need to use the virtual background, you will have to use the designated color as the background color. And also item 1 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. The Secretariat received a number of information papers. They have been listed out on the agenda. And then we have the items for discussion at the next meeting. Next meeting will be held on the 3rd of May, Tuesday, 4:30. And the administration is proposing to discuss 2 items on public works projects, including the housing project at Kawai Man Road and also Mount Davis Cottage area, and also the site formation and infrastructure works for public housing development near 10 Kwai Chun, Yuen Long. So do members agree that we should discuss these 2 items? All right, thank you. That will be the agenda item for the next meeting. Next, we'll move on to the first discussion item. In order to ensure that there'll be fair use of time, and we'll be able to discuss it in an orderly manner. So for those who would like to speak, please press the raise hand button on the screen. Okay. All right. Please clear your raise hand button. Clear it first. All right, for those who would like to speak, please now press the raise hand button on Zoom, and then I'll be inviting you to speak in accordance with the order of your indication. First item of discussion, Head 711 project number B784CL, site formation and infrastructure works for public housing development at Area 48 Fanling. And the paper has been listed out in the agenda. We have with us from the CEDD, the housing department, as well as the lands department and so on. So when the lands department representative is ready, I'll invite the housing department's representative to walk us through the paper. And there'll be a PowerPoint presentation by the administration. So housing department representative, please show us the PowerPoint. So please share the screen with us. So please share the screen with us so that members will have more time for questions and answers. So over to the housing department. So Deputy Director, yes. Okay. So Mr. Leung, please walk us through the paper. Yes. So I'll share the PowerPoint with you first. So do you want to share the PowerPoint with us? Yes. Okay, I can start now, Madam Chair. All right, please. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. As I said, I'll be briefly going through this item, that is B784CL. So that's about the site formation and infrastructure works for public housing development at Area 48 Fanling. And after collecting your views, we will go back to make preparation for the details of this project and also the detailed recommendation, so that the PAs, so that the Public Works Subcommittee as well as the FC can scrutinize this. With regard to this public housing development at Area 48 Fanling, we'll be doing site formation at the red part of the map, and there will also be slope works. And you can see the lay-by pedestrian walkways and so on. And also, we will also be working on the Tai Wall West, Tai Wall Service Road West, and there'll be a series of ancillary works, including drainage, sewage, waterworks, land decontamination, and landscaping works. And the CEDD has already completed a series of assessments, including transport impact and also the environmental impact assessments for the traffic impact assessment, we have already assessed the main roads conditions after the intake of population. We believe that there would be no serious impact on the traffic whatsoever. And we are also making improvements to the infrastructure of Fanling. For example, in the light green parts of the map, we are building the Fanling bypass eastern part, and also the relevant works, and also the bus bay and so on. And also for the Tai Wall Service Road West, there will be bus stops and also public transport interchange, so that members of the public can make use of public transport in order to take care of the need for passengers to go out. Feeder bus services will also be arranged so that they'll be able to go to the railway stations nearby. And we will also be considering increasing the number of bus routes passing by Tai Wall Service Road West. And also the CEDD in April 2019 already consulted the Fanling District Rural Committee. Members of the Rural Committee did not raise any objection. And then on the 18th of May 2020, we also consulted the Land Development, Housing and Works Committee of the North District Council. And then afterwards, we also responded to questions raised by members with regard to rehousing and also a series of other questions. And then on the 1st of April 2021, we gazetted the project. In the process, we received 5 objections. They are mainly concerned about traffic and transport compensation and rehousing issues. Subsequently, we explained the issues to the objectors. And the CE in Council also consider that on the 15th of March and authorize the proposed roadworks without modification to go ahead. And then land acquisition is also another issue that members are very concerned about. And we will have to resume about 1.8 hectares of private land and clear about 2.4 hectares of government land. We understand that for those who are affected, they are worried. And therefore, we have adopted a people-based approach, and also we have also made commitments to compensate them. And in accordance with the administrative expression or allowances in accordance with the law, we would also be offering compensation to them. And we plan to commence works on this project later this year. And then parts of it will start within this year. And we expect that they will be completed by 2027 to tie in with the public housing estates intake of population. And then we will also commence works on other parts next year. And then in 2025, in stages, the farm site would also be handed over to the Housing Authority for the construction works of the blocks to go ahead. We expect that within this fiscal year, we will be submitting this to the PWSC and the FC for approval. As to the cost estimates, on money of the day prices, we expect that it will cost about $1.145 billion, including site formation works costing about $800 million, and then road works and ancillary works are costing about $150 million. And then for the other costs, that would be about $200 million. For the detailed breakdown at the later PWSC meeting, we will be submitting the details. So we welcome members to note the proposal for this. Thank you. Thank you. Before members speak, I'd like to remind members that if members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest on this project, please, in accordance with Rules of Procedures 84A, please indicate the nature of such interest. And also, please note that Rules of Procedure 84 has certain requirements when you speak, and I can see that several members have indicated that they'd like to speak. So for the time being, I'll allow for 4 minutes each. So I'll read out the list of members who would like to speak, including Lee Chi-king, Chan Hock Fong, Lau Kok Fan, Chair Tony Chair, Ng Chau Pak, Hong Wen, and then Wong Yuen-shan. First, Lee Chi-king first. Please unmute your button. Can you hear me? All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, in Hong Kong, housing is a very pressing issue, and therefore adopting a multi-pronged approach to increase land supply and housing supply is something that we should support. So on this occasion, we are looking at Area 48 Fanling public housing development, and you're doing some advanced works, and therefore we support it in principle. But then for some members, when we went back to look up the information, we noticed that in 2013, on the 18th of December, when you went to the PWSC, there was a discussion paper, and in that paper, PWSC 2013 to 14, number 27, in that paper, well, page 74, we noticed that for Area 48, for the site formation and also the proposed works, if you look at the design and site investigation, in fact, it started in 2013, and yet this year is already 2022. How come site investigation and formation took so long? You only managed to start it in this year, and you said that this site will be handed over to the Housing Authority for housing construction. But then according to this paper, well, in 2029, the housing blocks will be completed in stages. In fact, you only have about 4,000 units, and it's going to house about 10,000. Given the small scale of the project, how come you have taken such a long time for site investigation and site formation and so on and so forth? If everything is done in accordance with that pace, when will we be able to resolve the housing problem in Hong Kong? Okay. Housing Department, thank you, Mr. Lee, for your questions. In fact, back in 2013, so in the general budgeting, we asked for some funding for that, and between 2013 and now, in fact, a lot of things have taken place. There have been a lot of variables, and I'll be deferring to my colleague from the Lands Department to explain to you. For example, in 2017, there was a rezoning, and then the reason why we have taken so long to complete the projects. With regard to the question asked by Mr. Lee, that is between 2013 and 2019, it took us 4 years to complete the housing project. In fact, it's not slow at all, because when you start work, so you will have to do the foundation, and then you will have to do the super structure. So it will indeed take 4 to 5 years before everything can be completed. So it's not that we have been doing things too slowly. In fact, we can give you some examples. For example, the way we are doing it is that we are doing it by way of a prefabrication method. So for a story that is to be completed, it takes us 6 days to complete, and we are also exploring ways to expedite the progress and so on. So for the details, I'll defer to our colleagues from the CEDD to explain to you why it would take us more time to do it. Okay. Well, that would be something that we will be looking at. So Mr. Mock, shall we do it?
Thank you, Chairman. For this project, I think it started in 2013 when we started land planning, and by 2027, we finalized the plan in 7 years, and we've finished the rezoning. But according to the land resumption ordinance, we have to go through the legal procedures. We also need to accommodate some road works in the neighboring area. Now, for next to Fanning Area 48, there was a need for road diversion, and part of the land has been rezoned for housing development. So the alignment, therefore, was only confirmed by 2018. Back in 2019, we started the preparation for the Gazzetto and then resumption. And then, like Mr. Leung said, back starting from 2019 and then in 2020 and 2021, we started to consult the local residents about the project. So we had the Gazette in April 2021, and in March 2022, we already obtained the approval. So we've already tried our best to expedite the project. Thank you. Perhaps I'll invite other members to follow up on this item. Mr. Chen Fung. Thank you, Chairman. The DB always support the production of more public housing units so that we can complete, we can ensure that the waiting time is for 3 years. I think for this new development projects for the housing department, I think they've not done a good job in terms of planning. For example, we're talking about 4,000 units accommodating about 10,000 people. But if you look at the design, there is only a small road going into the estate for Fanning Highway and the Time was Road West. The traffic there is very busy, and in future it's going to be even more congested. 10,000 people will be like living in a deserted island here. I have the impression that when the housing department had any development in the past, like the Yitong and Yuntong in Tongchong, for these public housing estates, they are like isolated cities, and the facilities in the area is seriously inadequate. Where there is a market and some ancillary facilities and some schools nearby, but most of the daily amenities, people have to go to major shopping centers. And in the wet markets, there are very few stores, and people have to pay expensive prices to buy their groceries. So I think this mode of development would need to be changed. Furthermore, as the population ages and the birth rate declines, do we really need to build a permanent school building here? You may have young households moving in, but as the population develops in many districts in Hong Kong, we already, closing down some schools. So when the site is no longer to be used for a school, can we change the land use rather than occupying the site permanently there in the form of a school? Mr. Leung. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for that question. First of all, regarding the traffic situation, I think we have conducted some assessment in terms of the traffic situation regarding the entry to the estate. You know that the road there is a cul-de-sac. It's mainly for the school buses to load and unload the students. As for the Taiwan Road West Service Road, the main entrance is located at the Taiwan East, and there will be laybys in Taiwan Road West and some loading and unloading areas, and also loading and unloading areas for taxis, so that we can hopefully improve the traffic infrastructure along Taiwan Road West. Regarding what other ancillary facilities we have in the planning for this project, you'll note that there is a primary school to the east of the site, and in our development proposal, we also have proposed the provision of a kindergarten there to meet the needs of the residents moving into the estate. There would be retail facilities as well. For example, wet markets or shops selling fresh groceries, and so that we can take care of the daily needs of the residents. Besides that, there will also be provision of social welfare facilities in this project. So I think members can rest assured there will certainly be all the necessary facilities for the residents. But if residents need to go to a large shopping center, then they may need to go to the Lam Ning shopping center and another major shopping center nearby, where there will be, more comprehensive shop retail facilities. As for the school premises, we've asked the Education Bureau, and they told us that they took many factors in consideration before they built the school, including the projected population development or changes. So the projection is that the student population will decline, and the Education Bureau will keep reviewing the situation. So reserving the site for the building of a school, we believe there is certainly useful. Mr. Lau Kok Fan, thank you. Providing more housing units is something which we would support. But for the project in Area 48, I always have my reservations, especially in the North District Council. During the consultation with the District Council, I always believe that there is some flaws in your planning. For example, building a public housing estate near a crematorium and a columbarium, and building a super, columbarium next to this development is not right. And so also the area 48 is also at the fringe of Fanling, and it is away from the Taiwan White Service Road West. So the traffic situation is certainly something of concern. We are worried that if 10,000 people move into this new estate, it will be very inconvenient for the residents, because it would take at least half an hour if they want to go to the next community nearby. I hope the department can review the situation, because in Charlang, I think for this project, we don't have funding approval yet, so there's still room to make some changes for the whole of Northern District and the development of NT North. I think I think if you go ahead now, it will be very difficult to make any changes in future. Mr. Leung. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lau. First of all, let me talk about the land use issue first. Mr. Lau said that the government all along has exhausted all means to find land for the building of public housing units to meet the demand. Earlier, the Town Planning Board in early 2010 and in August 2015 reviewed the study of land use, and the finding was that Area 48 in Fanling should be rezoned for housing development. Subsequently, the Development Bureau and the Planning Department in 2014 consulted the North District Council to find out about how what the situation regarding housing supply. The paper also referred to Area 48, which is a site which will be used for the provision of housing units. I mean, after all, there is a very keen demand for land for housing development. So wherever there is any land available for public housing development, we would use it for that purpose. Subsequently, the department found that this site in Fanling is very suitable for the development of public housing. And subsequently, in 2017, we successfully completed the rezoning. So that's the background. Next, about the supporting facilities, Mr. Lau is correct. The nearest area nearby would be Nam Ning and Hua Shan Estate. For the resident, they need to walk 15 to 20 minutes to go to the shopping center there. If they take public transport, it will be only 3 bus stops away. In a development project, we will provide the basic, amenities. But if people need to go to a larger shopping area, or if they want more choices, then they can go to a Warming Estate or Wandsworth Estate. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Chairman. Madam Chair, first of all, I'd like to thank the administration for which had actually met myself and other colleagues and briefed us on this project. At that meeting, we were able to obtain answers to many of the questions. Today, I'd like to make 2 points. First of all, I think members are concerned that part of the land for this project will be used to build a primary school. I always hope, as other members pointed out earlier, that populations, the demographics will change. You now have planned for a primary school, but later on you may need to have a secondary school. So whether it's land zoning or in your design, I hope that you can adopt a more flexible approach so that when the need comes or arises, you don't need to have major demolition before you can convert the primary school into a secondary school. I think in the early design stage, I think the government, our colleagues have already made this point to the Education Bureau, namely that they should, have this flexibility so the resources will not be wasted. Another point is that, according to the paper, there will be 1.8 hectares of private land which have to be resumed. I think land resumption very often may delay a project. Could you tell us what steps they've taken to ensure that they can, manage the objection? To answer Mr. Chair's question as to whether we can have some flexibility, we will certainly, look further into this and liaise with the Education Bureau so that when the building department build the school, whether they can actually, provide for some flexibility. Regarding land resumption, I'll ask Madam Tam from the Land Department to answer the question. Ms. Tam? Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Regarding land resumption, I think last year we already had a pre-demolition registration exercise, and earlier than that, together with the CEDD, during the consultation period, we've met with members of the public and explained to them the details regarding land resumption and compensation. The statutory procedure has yet to begin. Normally, after the FC has approved the funding, we will proceed with the Gazetto and then resume the land. And at the site in question, we will put up a notice, a public notice, and 3 months afterwards, the land will officially be reverted back to the government. And we will follow the land resumption ordinance cap 124 and cap 370 to resume Area 48 in Fanling for public housing development. I think the land resumption this time involves 19 private lots. We will provide the statutory compensation to those people who are registered, and we will follow the relevant ordinances to determine follow the necessary procedures to proceed with the compensation. Thank you.
There will also be a land compensation mechanism so that in accordance with the location and also the situation, there will be 4 levels of compensation. If you look at the location of this site, it'll be used for public housing development, and therefore the compensation will be classified as category A, that is the highest level. And if the relevant parties do not accept that level of compensation, they can also apply for a review. And if they still feel aggrieved, they can also get some experts to do a professional valuation, and in accordance with the government's mechanism, the cost would also be reimbursed to the party affected. Well, the procedures that you just set out, well, we are all very familiar with that, but then I think what members would like to know is about the timing. So time is up, so I'll hand over to some other members. We still have time. Well, members asked about the slow progress and also the land resumption procedures and so on. Well, those have been very slow. So when necessary, members might wish to raise a hand again to ask in the second round. So there might be individual cases which you'd like to ask for further details. And you would also have to supply us with further details about these public works project. Next, Mr. Hong Man. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'd like to know about the timing. So we will have to wait till 2029 before the intake of population will start. So it's very slow. So you said that you'd be expediting the land development progress. So I'd like to know whether or not this project will also be one of the targets, because with regard to the green site to be turned into a mature site, it will take some time, because I've also consulted some private developers. In fact, there are a lot of differences between a public works and private housing development project. Still, in the private sector, they are able to do things in parallel, and therefore it's a lot faster. So for public housing project, you will have to do it step by step, and therefore you are a lot slower. So can you learn from the private sector so that you can improve your efficiency? And also about the supporting facilities, for example, what about the primary school? Can they, would they be able to commission shortly? So I understand that you will have to carry out some assessments. For example, with regard to the transport circle, do we need to make sure that there are certain transport infrastructure that will have to be built? Will there be overlapping of certain facilities and so on? Well, as you said earlier on, you will have to have more flexibility. In particular, for this primary school, as some members have said, will this school be closed? So you will have to look at it from a more macroscopic perspective before things will be done properly. Okay. Yes, Housing Department. Thank you, Ms. Hong, and thank you, Madam Chair. First, on the flow chart, the Development Bureau is working on this as far as I understand it. Well, within the next electrical year, they're going to table it before this council for discussion as to what projects will benefit from this streamlined process. Well, for this particular housing project, it's already underway. We are already doing land resumption. Well, if you look at the flow chart, well, I think projects that are already at an advanced stage might benefit from it. As to private developers and also public housing project, is it that there are a lot of differences between a public and a private project? Well, first, if you just look at the pace of development, you will have to look at the complexity and how tall the buildings are. Well, in some cases, even for us, for smaller housing projects, it can also be completed very quickly. As to what can be done in order to increase the efficiency, well, we are talking about a site formation project, and then at the same time, we would be doing some advanced works, for example, site investigation and so on, so that by the time when site formation is completed, when we hand over the site to the housing authority, they'll be able to start piling right away. So that would compress the whole program. And just now, Ms. Hong also talk about the 1 hour or half an hour traveling cycle or circle. Well, other than our development, the SWD would also have to look at the adjacent facilities. So we will have to look at the essential facilities that will be needed. As to the primary schools, many of you have mentioned that. Well, probably because there is a declining demand for primary school places. So priority will be given to whether or not the school campus site can be expanded or be used for other purposes and so on. Okay, last two members to speak in this round. First, Ng Chao Pak and then Wong Yuen-shan. Ng Chao Pak first. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my view is this project at Area 48 Fanling, the administration's traffic impact assessment has been too optimistic. Because if you look at the project, I would suspect that there'll be an increase of about 10,000 residents, and that would also generate additional traffic demand. In particular, for the Taiwan Service Road West, is going to be a single lane, two-way road. So will you consider improving the traffic infrastructure to support this project? And also on the timing, we are also very concerned. We hope that the department can respond to this concern more proactively. For example, at Wahab Shek estate or village, will you be talking to the villagers to find out more? Well, for land resumption, how much are you going to offer? How much time will be needed for the land resumption process to be completed? So can you give us more details? Okay, Mr. Leung. Thank you, Mr. Ng, for your questions. First, on TIA, well, we have already compiled the report. Well, as you can see, there would be some improvement works at certain locations. And in fact, for the Fanling bypass is already underway. And also for the Taiwan Service Road West, improvement works are being carried out. And the capacity will also be doubled. And there'll be more laybys. And the carriageway will also be widened. And after the completion of the hardware, what about the software? The Transport Department is looking at some feeder buses to nearby railway stations and whether or not additional bus routes can also be introduced in order to tie in with the intake of population of this estate. As to the liaison with Wahab Shek villages, and also the land resumption progress, well, we have already given them the context so that when they have any queries, they can ask us. So, yes, Mr. Mok from the CEDD, thank you for the questions. In fact, when we consulted the District Council, we also consulted the Rule Committee in tandem. The Rule Committee expressed support for this project, and some members from that constituency also asked us to consult the villages further. That's why in 2020, other than this consulting the district councillors, we also met with the villages there. And we also explained to them the situation, the timetable as well as the land resumption arrangements. So they do have sufficient understanding of the project. And our team, together with the lands department, will also be reaching out to them to see if they might need our help in the course of land clearance and so on. Yes, lands department, thank you for the question. We haven't really started the statutory land resumption procedures, but then for the pre-clearance registration, we have already got hold of information about the villagers who might be affected. So we are actually racing with time in order to approach the villagers who might be affected. We are also doing some pre-qualification with them to find out if they are eligible. And then we would also be helping them with the application procedures so that I would be able to compress the time for seeking ex gratia payment from us. And we will also be working with the CEDD so that for rehousing arrangements, those would also be completed as quickly as possible so that by the middle of next year, we can hand over the first batch of sites to the CEDD for works to start. And then for phase 2 in January 2024, that will also be available. So that's the current timetable. Okay, yes, Mr. Wong Yuen-shan. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions. They are factual questions. First, back in 2016, the planning department consulted the North District Council on the land rezoning. So back then they said that the project should be completed in 2027 and 28. So was that correct? Next, when you consulted the North District Council back in January 2016, subsequently you consulted the Rural Committee, and then by 2021 April, you did the Gazetto. So during that process, there were, so 5 years were involved. And then the department also said that specifically you were doing things in parallel, but then for the layout plans, when were they available? And first of all, I personally cannot support this project because for public housing projects, they have been delayed time and again. And then if you look at it and try to magnify it to other projects, that the reason why we haven't been able to supply housing units in a timely manner, I think before you go to the PWSC, you will have to come up with ways. So for phase 1, 2019, that was the initial target. And now it has to be extended to 2027. So within 5 years, we need to have the 4,000 units available. If you're not able to do it, then this fourth question is, how come we cannot do it by way of public-private sector participation? Because you said that you would be able to complete a floor within 6 days, but then according to some private developers, they are able to do it in 3 days. And if you're not able to do the same, why not? And how come you still are not able to expedite the progress so that we'd be able to resolve this problem more expeditiously? Okay, Mr. Leung. Okay, thank you, Mr. Leung.
When we talk about 2027, 28 completion date, we're talking about the assessment at the time. And but in the interim, there have been many changes. The latest estimate is that the completion will be in 2029. As to whether we can, bring it forward to 2027, I think we're talking about 2 stages here. First of all, site formation stage, and also the infrastructure work stage and the construction itself. So our CEDD colleagues later can further elaborate. But for site formation, there are certain works which are essential. For example, at the land in question, we need to level some of the slopes, and there are also decontamination works to be done. So it's not just that things can be done very quickly or overnight. So so it takes time. And also, as to the speed of housing construction, I think we have actually made a comparison for similar or comparable private development. I don't think there's very much difference in terms of speed. For example, we, together with the housing department, we've also compared the speed of housing construction with the private sector, and we didn't find very much of a big difference. As to whether or not we can expedite the construction, we've already tried different methods. Whether MIC, Mr. Wong asked whether MIC can, and also the use of technology can help. And also in the design and build contract, whether that can also help expedite the project. I believe we will be able to shorten the timetable. However, like Mr. Wong suggested, we can shorten the work period from 4 to 5 years to 2 odd years. That will be a difficult task. As for the PSPS HOS project, that is a different approach. If need be, we will explore that option and how we should do that if we decide to proceed. And now perhaps I can ask the CDD if they have anything else to add. Mr. Mok, anything to supplement on the question timetable? Let me explain the work procedure. First of all, the project involves land resumption. The land commissioner already told you the timetable. I think we are talking about up to early 2024, we'll be able to complete the land resumption and arrange for the compensation and resettlement of the residents affected. And starting from 2024, we have to conduct the contamination works because the site has been used as a motor garage yard, and therefore we may need to do some decontamination work. We expect that fewer than 3 months after work proceeds, together with land resumption, demolition, and decontamination, the first piece of land could be made available to the housing department. Of course, during this time, we will at the same time proceed with the site formation, the leveling of the slopes, and so on. The retaining wall there, we need to build a 600-meter retaining wall, and we need to do some piling as well. So that would take more than 3 years before it could be completed. So from between now, it will complete it in 2027. We expect that by 2027, or if we could finish the retaining wall project earlier, then some of the land which has been formed, we will be able to hand over to the housing department for construction. I understand that some members have put up their hands for the second round. I will allow them to speak. But before that, I would also like to take a few minutes to ask my question. Mr. Leung, I think Ms. Leung is, in a way, an innocent victim. I understand that Mr. Leung is the third, assistant director since the project was first proposed. So there have been several rounds of personnel changes since the project was proposed. So for this project, we have a delay, and there could be many reasons. So I'd like to ask the assistant director this question. You say that the land department will try to streamline the land formation or land development procedure. for the housing department. Now, regarding public housing development, how can you expedite the process? Are there any procedures that could be streamlined? For example, several members have asked several times regarding questions regarding land resumption and compensation, and Mr. Pang has not been able to give us a lot of details because the procedure is yet to start. Today we're told that the project will be completed in 2029, but if there are hiccups with land resumption, it could take even longer. So, Assistant Director, could you tell us, for this project, it would appear, I think you don't want to see any delay either, but looking forward, since we are talking about the need to expedite all these projects, but Mr. Mok told us about the traffic issue and so on. I think everything is under the portfolio of your bureau, housing and transport and so on. So before you go to the PWSC, Mr. Wong Yuen-shan suggests that at the PWSC meeting, you may say this is not relevant to the project, but we would still want to have the confidence to see colleagues from the housing department and other colleagues to expedite the production of public housing. Even if you cannot do it for this project, at least you should expedite other projects. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that reminder. Regarding the streamlining of procedure, like I said, we're already into the land site formation stage. And according to the Development Bureau, now if the whole process, if we could follow the new approach, we can save 2 to 2.5 years. And I think later on in the next 10 years, for projects which have yet to start, I think they will benefit from the enhancement or the improvement. And meanwhile, we are actively making preparation for projects which originally planned to start later. We are already now looking at the timetable to see whether we can bring them forward. And we are also making preparations just to do that. As to whether we can further shorten the timetable, together with the CED, I think we work very, closely with the CEDD. And as they proceed with the project, the housing department is also doing their part. For example, the CEDD is working on the infrastructures and the site formation. Meanwhile, we are doing the design and the surveying, so that once the CEDD has completed the project, we will immediately move on to the site to start the piling. So this is something we will do. As to whether we can further shorten the construction period, of course, we will resort to different ways. We will explore the use of technology, and also for the topside development and the foundation work, are there ways that we can, shorten the time of the interface? So we will certainly assure members that it is our mission to expedite the construction process. Well, before you go to the PWSC, could you give us a paper outlining all the things that you are on your mind, that you're thinking about, like you said just now? You said that even for this project, you may not be able to, shorten the timetable. You say that, could you tell us how you will be able to, shorten the timetable for the other projects so that we can have the confidence, rather than having us blaming you for being so slow? Could you give us such a paper before you go to the PWSC, although it may not be directly relevant to this item? But I believe that it will give the confidence to colleagues that you will be able to expedite the project in future, and also that we don't have to ask the same question each and every time. For the second round, Madam Hon Won, you have 4 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the question regarding the timetable. Will the Bureau For example, outsource the projects to private contractors. I've talked to some private contractors, and I have the understanding that they can actually finish the project 2 years, shorter than what the government would take. So is there anything that we can learn from the experience? And is it really true that the private contractors can, finish this project, which is 2 years less? I think for public housing development, we are responsible for the construction, the completion of the project, and also the maintenance of the project after completion. It's difficult for me to comment as to whether or not the private contractors can finish it in 2 years less than what we would require. But there are issues involved like quality assurance and I think the commitment we are undertaking, it will take decades. So we need to be very careful. I think private contractor may be able to be faster with the construction period, but would that result in more issues subsequent to the completion of the project? So we will certainly be willing to learn from the experience of the private sector so that it can help us expedite the speed of construction. So in our paper, I hope we will be able to give members an answer. I don't see any other members raising their hand, so I think with that, we may wrap up our discussion on this item. So I'll now change the screen to gallery view. So for members who would support this, members who agree that we should forward this item for discussion by the PWSC, can we now change to the UC mode? Do members agree that we should refer this project to the PWSC? Good. So the project will be passed on to the PWSC. With that, we will move on to the next item. In order that we can arrange for members to speak in an orderly manner, will members please, first of all, switch off the raise hand symbol. And now, if you wish to speak for this project, you may now press the raise hand column. So this column is the Housing Authority Total Management Scheme. I think we are waiting for the next batch of officials to come in. So after our colleagues from the Housing Department has come in, then we will be able to start our discussion on the TMS.
All right, thank you. Let's first invite government representatives to walk us through the paper. So there will be a PowerPoint presentation. And Deputy Director, you can also very briefly go through it because we all understand it very well. So first, Mr. Young Yu-fai from the Housing Department and also Mr. Hong from the Transport Department. So is it you, Mr. Young, who will walk us through the paper? Yes, good afternoon, members. Am I coming through? Yes, back in 2006, the Housing Department or HA launched the TMS in 2006 to proactively inspect the in-flat conditions and provide comprehensive repair services for PRH units. And our in-flat inspection ambassadors would also proactively inspect and give advice to tenants in order to ensure that they are properly maintained. And the scheme has been well received by tenants, and the satisfaction rate has been kept at around 80%. And in the light of the severity of the fifth wave of the epidemic, we suspended this TMS for the time being. And as a result, we try to provide advice to tenants at our office. Back in 2020, when we first had the outbreak, because there were concerns about the drainage system of the blocks, we introduced the drainage inspection program. That is the program that we offer in light of the pandemic. That's the DIP, the drainage inspection program. So we would inspect the communal drainage pipes, and we would also be looking at units to see if repair works are needed. So other than that, the HA would also decided to go an extra mile by arranging for the drainage enhancement program in August this year. So that would further enhance the situation. So I'll defer to Mr. Hong, our colleague, who will give you a PowerPoint presentation to give you the details. Okay, Mr. Hong, you can be faster because I think our members are smart enough to understand it. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So I'll briefly go through it. There are about 12, 13 slides. So as the Deputy Director just said, so we'd like to do some in cycles so that we'd understand the in-flat conditions and would be able to provide a better living environment to tenants. In fact, under this program, for housing estates age over 30 years, once every 5 years, there'll be an in-flat inspection. And then for those over 10 years, there'll be an inspection once every 10 years. And there are three purposes. First, we'd like to proactively identify the repair problems of the units, and we would also like to respond to the requests expeditiously. And thirdly, would strengthen the inspection and repair process. And we would also be inspecting the in-flat conditions, and there'll be ambassadors who would go to the units to inspect the conditions. They'd be looking at the ceilings, the walls, the floors, the windows, the drainage pipes, and so on. For example, when we inspect the ceilings, we'd be seeing if there is any spalling, and also whether or not there are problems with the electric appliances, and also TV signal reception system, security systems, and also gas installations that would have to be repaired. And we would also be responding promptly to any requests for repairs. So in principle, all requests will be dealt with very promptly, because they will be bringing with them certain tools so that when they conduct the in-flat inspection, where necessary, they can also carry out the repair works on the spot. So they would also be issuing work orders when necessary. And then for the more complicated cases, we would also be explaining to them what is involved and what needs to be done. And if there are more complicated problems, for example, if there is a spalling, then we will use the mobile education booth system so that follow-up work will be taken. And there will also be a checklist as shown on the PowerPoint. And then if the tenants have any queries, they can also contact us with the contact on the leaflets. We will also be stepping up education so that tenants would be made better aware of this. So we will also be introducing the scheme to the estate management committee. We would also be distributing booklets, and our in-flat inspection ambassadors would also be explaining to the tenants with regard to the repair services available and what needs to be done and so on. And in the course of the program, at the ground floor of the blocks, we would also be setting up booths, and there'll be display boards to show the tenants the details and also to explain to them certain information about repair and maintenance. In fact, we started this in April 2016, and as of December last year, we already completed about 300,000 units in 79 housing estates. And we should have completed that in 2021, but then because of the epidemic, we suspended the maintenance program for a while, and we expect that by the end of this year, we would be able to complete the third 5-year plan. And also under the third 5-year plan, we would be completing about 120,000 works orders. We have also hired an independent consultant to conduct investigation and inspection to find out if tenants are happy with our work. And as I said, they are generally happy. And as I explained earlier, because of the 5th wave of the epidemic, we suspended the program in January 2022. But then in the process, our staff also went to the different districts, and because of the epidemic, there was additional workload because we need a lot of manpower to deal with the drainage issues. And even if we have suspended, even though we have suspended the works, if tenants have any problems, they can always contact us. And then we will ask our staff to follow up on their issues. Other than that, depending on the situations, we would also be enhancing our drainage program. For example, we introduced the drainage inspection program as well as the drainage enhancement program. And this is a voluntary scheme, and it lasts for 18 months. In fact, it started in October 2020. We already completed the inspection of communal drainage pipes for 600 blocks. And then for in-flat drainage pipes, we already arranged for inspection of some 800,000. And for various reasons, some units have not been able to let us in, but then we have already managed to successfully enter some 460,000 units to carry out the inspection. And where there are minor problems, we immediately repair them and fix them. And for those units that we have not been able to go in, we have also issued notices so that tenants can contact us to arrange for in-flat inspection, or else they can also make use of the TMS or other programs to arrange for repairs and maintenance, for example, responsive in-flat maintenance services and so on. And we noticed that around 41,000 households have done something about their standard closets and also branch vent pipes. We have already sealed the relevant pipes, and we have already advised them to connect them again at their own cost. And when necessary, we can also provide assistance through the tenant to pay services so that we can do the reconnection for them. And then next is about the drainage enhancement plan. Well, in April 2021, we updated the practice notes for authorized persons, the PNAP. And this would also help us update the current system. And we have also decided to walk an extra mile by implementing the DEP, and that is through the Subsidized Housing Committee. And under this program, there are 3 improvement works. First, we would improve the location of open ends of vent pipes on roofs, with all vent pipes to be extended. And we would also be looking at the connecting branch pipes to collect used water from wash hand basins to replenish the water inside the traps or floor drains to prevent loss of water seal. And thirdly, in some units, There will also be some common U-traps between adjacent flats, and therefore we will have to add independent U-traps to the toilet floor drains in order to ensure that guests and notice from would not be passing from one flat to its adjacent flat. So that's all. Okay, so this is a very popular subject. Many members would like to speak, and therefore I have to control the time more strictly, and therefore please be more precise and concise. Everybody will be given 4 minutes. First, Chan Wong, Michael Tan, Hong Man, Chair, Tony Chair, Dr Wai Chun, and also Mr. Ng, Mr. Lee Chan Kang, Mr. Ng Chao Pak, and also Kong Yuk Foon. 4 minutes, including both questions and answers. First, Mr. Chan Wong. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, TMS has been welcomed by the tenants because for public housing estates, when they are aged, there are repair problems. But then in the process, we've been serving the estates for many years. Administratively, there is room for improvement. For example, a lot of time would be taken to go in and out of the flat, and very often tenants would also have to take a few days off before they can entertain that time. So that would also affect or disrupt their daily life. So have you reviewed the situation with regard to such repair works in the past? Normally, how many times do they have to go into those flats? And for tenants who have to wait for you, how many times do they have to be home to wait for you? And then what about the number of times and also the time that would be taken to complete the process and so on? And also for these repair items, well, for tenants as to what items would be included, what would not, they are not very clear about this. So you will have to step up education and publicity so that tenants would know that some of these items would have to be paid for at their own cost. And also because of the COVID situation for drainage pipes, you have carried out some inspection. But then for the in-flat conditions, the progress has been unsatisfactory. We understand that you have only managed to complete half of those inspections, and it's still very much a voluntary program. And many of them have problems. So would you be mandating for the remaining half? They would also have to allow you to go in to carry out the inspection. Because in public housing estates, the outbreak situation is more serious. And also, with regard to future design of new housing estates, well, we have got some professors who said that because of the toilets and kitchens, they are at the, they have this closed alley problem, and very often because of the ventilation, the exhaust gas would go back into the flat again. So do you have any idea as to how that can be improved? Okay, first on the design. Well, with regard to the situation, well, it's suggested that for the rooftop ventilation system, there would be new requirements, and therefore they will have to comply with the new standards. With regard to the in-flat installations, normally there would be 3 people, and then for simple repair works that can be done on the spot. Only for more complicated works that would require work orders, so that there would be another visit to carry out the detailed repair works. In most cases, we would try to do it instantly. No major works would be done.
So simply said, the housing department is responsible for the fixtures. For decoration work of the households, that is not our responsibility. We have 800,000 units. We successfully gained access to more than 400,000 units. When we look at the condition of the pipes, they are in general in good condition. Only a small percentage would require minor repairs, like the packs, and in some areas where there is some loosening of the pipes, and we will immediately conduct on-site repairs. There are some units for which we've leave our contact so long as they contact us through that contact, our colleagues are ready to gain access to the units concerned to carry out the inspection. Mr. Michael Tin had raised his hand. Mr. Michael Tin. Dr. Low Wei Kwok will be next. Thank you, Madam Chair. To cope with the 2019 COVID epidemic, the Housing Authority started this inspection scheme. The Housing Department has also furthered the TMS to cover the external drainage pipes or the communal pipes, and the number of units requiring inspection numbered 800,000. The HA completed all the external communal drainage pipes. I'd like to know what is the outcome of the inspection. Have they identified any problems? I think there have been outbreak of an epidemic in many PRH estates, which have that to do with these drainage pipes. Or are you sure, can you confirm that they have nothing to do with this drainage pipe because you've already finished all the repairs? And the Housing Department has also found out that 41,000 households, I think they have actually converted or messed with the traps of the floor drains. Have you take any immediate action? Now, if you don't not take any concrete action, then if somebody should get infected, the whole building would, residents in the whole block will suffer. So I think residents would. So in order to prevent vertical transmission of the virus, I think you need to do this. Thank you. First of all, let me talk about the 41,000 households who may have changed their own toilet seats and remove the vents. So in doing so, they've already violated the building ordinance, and that is not acceptable. Once we discover that, we've already, close or seal off the opening of those pipes. Earlier, the technician might not have used good materials, and we would have successfully seal off those drains to ensure that there will not be any leakage. We've also sent out letters requiring those households to do that, and we would allow them sufficient time, because very often it takes time for them to engage a contractor to do the job. So we allow them enough time to do that. How much time would you allow that? Did you allow them to fix the problem? We're still in the midst of the epidemic, so we would give the relevant households reasonable time. If they don't do that, we have other ways to ensure that they would comply. But at least you should have a timetable, a year or what. If they don't cooperate, there are other ways by which we can handle the situation. For example, we have a demerit scheme which could apply in this case. If they refuse to cooperate, we will send them a warning letter. And if they still don't cooperate, then we would, they will have get a 7 demerit points. What about the external communal drainage pipes? We've finished the external drainage pipes. We found that there's only about 3% of those pipes will need to be repaired. So the situation is not that serious. Dr. Low Wei Kwok, followed by Mr. Holman. Thank you. Regarding, I think that, of course, I would support the TMS scheme. Because of the COVID epidemic, I think we're all very concerned about the condition of these drainage pipes. Now, I think you've already finished a very large inspection scheme. All the common drainage pipes, external pipes have been inspected for all the PRH units, covering 800,000 units and 460,000 for 460,000 households. You've already successfully gained access. Some members are concerned that some of these pipes have been, changed or tampered with. Although in the earlier inspection, the drainage pipe, the external drainage pipes are in general okay, only a small percentage would be problematic. Now in the enhancement scheme, an important part is to change the open ends of the vent pipes on roofs so that they will be extended to more than 3 meters from a common boundary, a window or opening, and so on, so that you'll be able to comply with the latest standard. Because of I think we've heard the experts talking about the building wake effect. I'm sure that with this improvement or enhancement, and through the improvement to these vent pipes, there would be an improvement. But if we only, for this type of enhancement, how many internal vent pipes would need to be, repaired? Thank you, Director. We have 3 improvement projects. First of all, improvement, we're extending the open ends of the white pipes on roofs, and this involved 1,300 housing blocks. Almost in all the public housing in the United States, we need to extend these pipes because right now they will only need to be 1 meter above the ground level. The latest requirement is 3 meters, so that all the existing buildings, we need to do that, and we envisage it will take 2.5 years to finish this project. Secondly, regarding the branch pipes, they involve about 400 blocks, because not each and every block has this kind of design. It covers 76 PRH estates. Thirdly, right now we have 1 UTAP for 2 households. We will change that to 1 for each household, and we're talking about 445 public housing estates involved. How you will proceed with these works? What is important is whether or not you have new procedures and new rules in place so that the residents will be willing to cooperate. So how are you going to enhance the whole process? First of all, we don't need to gain access to the household units itself for the first 2 types of improvement works. We would like to appeal to households to enable us to gain access to units for the third, enhancement works, and that they will understand that this is for their own benefit, and I'm sure they would be willing to cooperate. Chairman, Madam Chair, I support this project. Ms. Hong Wen, followed by Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you. The director said that about 10,000 units, the branch U-traps have been removed. I think for such removal works, they're not done by the residents themselves, but rather by the contractors. So would you remind the trade that when they carry out fitting out works, they should not remove these traps? And secondly, you have a demerit system in place when and demerit points will be imposed if they breach these rules in the course of the renovation. So in the past, have you actually taken demerit points of such households who did not comply? And thirdly, improvement to the drainage pipes, certain enhancements have been carried out. For these enhancement measures, would you extend them to PRH units which will be built in the future, so that they will also comply with the same standard? Regarding the trade, or as far as reminding the trade is concerned, if the household wants to replace the household, they would need to apply. So when they apply, we would remind them not to remove the gas pipe when they carry out such works. As for the demerit system, the TMS scheme is entirely a voluntary scheme, and we don't have a demerit system, direct bond system. But in the course of inspection, if we discover any serious breaches or illegal alterations, or changing the structural walls, for example, we will resort to other channels to take the necessary actions. As for future design, for the 3 improvement projects, they are all included in the practice notes. All the architects and engineers have also been given a copy of the practice note, so that in the future design, I hope they will improve the design. The Housing Department also has undertaken that for the new housing estates to be built, they will also follow the new standard. Anything else? No? Mr. Tony Chair, followed by Mr. Kwok Wai Kyung. Thank you. Regarding the TMS, this is a 5-year project. I believe that in the TMS scheme, we have identified some areas which could be further improved. In para 14, you talk about the satisfaction level, and 80% of the residents have expressed their satisfaction. What are the areas of dissatisfaction for the other 20%? Is there any room for further improvements? And secondly, you have appointed, these in-flat inspection ambassadors. Now, I'd like to know, for these in-flat inspection ambassadors, how many are there? And thirdly, in the past, the quality of such work in the last 5 years, I think that the figures were not too satisfactory. Regarding the quality of the works, what measures have you taken? And as far as the quality of the works concerned, you may conduct surprise checks. What is the outcome of those checks? Regarding the quality of the works, actually, the Housing Department attaches a lot of importance to quality control for important works like concrete spalling, and we will immediately carry out the work. And for the replacement of the pipes, we do have a surprise inspection involving 10% of the sample. And we do have a surprise check system. So there's a 3-level monitoring system, and the contractors would also be given a score if they have many complaints. If they don't perform well, we would give them a poor grade.
So that would also affect their chance of winning any tenders in the future, because the scoring system will reflect their performance in the past. Do you have detailed statistics Do you have the figures with you? Well, I can supplement. With regard to the investigation or the survey results, well, we said that 80% were happy and 20% were not happy. First, on the quality of works, because on the spot checks, if you looked at past figures, many of them were not happy because there was a lot of room for improvement. So have you conducted any spot checks? So what's the result? Have you done any spot checks? Do you have the figures with you? So Mr. Hong or Mr. Yang? Well, on last year's paper, so around 14% would need to be redone. We are able to improve it, so it's about 5.6% now. So 5 to 6%. So initially, some 14% would need to be redone. And then when we did the inspection in the past, we found out that 14% of that would require further works. So that's the figures. And then for the 20%, well, on the satisfaction rate, so if in 2.5% of the cases, they said that they were happy. And then in some cases, because the explanation was not clear, in some cases, the tenants might not have heard them very clearly. I think the most important thing is to enhance the communication and explain things more clearly so that they would understand what it takes to complete the repair works. So once again, it has to do with the attitude. Okay, next, Mr. Kwok Wai Kang, and then Mr. Lit Young Wing Kit. Thank you, Madam Chair. There are two issues here. When I look at the paper, well, in January 2022, for the TMS, it was suspended because on the one hand, we also have to protect our frontline staff. On the other, we also have to protect the tenants involved. But then what about emergency repair? Well, did you still carry out such works, or is it that everything has to be suspended? Because in some cases where there are serious problems and if there are any delays, then that might affect the tenants' daily living. That's number one. And second, so have you done any estimate as to how long you would have to suspend these works? Because there would be a backlog once it's suspended. So would that increase the workload when it's resumed? So that for frontline staff, the pressure might be too much. And also, thirdly, on the inspection of the drainage pipes, some 41,000 units have been found to have demolished the vent pipes. So is it that they were installed very initially and then under the DIP, you managed to find out that they had done something to it? Or is it that they just did the alteration? Because initially there should have been a regular inspection. So how come you were only able to identify that under the DIP? And also for many tenant purchase estates, despite the fact that you have got a lot of manpower to work on it, how come in these estates the tenants would also have to be safeguarded? So they demolished the pipes. So how can you ensure these tenants' health would be properly protected? Well, the TMS is somewhat different from the regular in-flat inspection scheme, because you can always call the management office and ask for repair works to be done. So that has not been suspended at all. So that has never been suspended. So if there is any pipe blockage, they can just call us and then we'll send people there to do the inspection and carry out repair works. So it's only that the TMS was suspended. As to how long, will it take before it can be resumed? That would depend on the epidemic and also the feedback from the tenants. Tenants can also give us their views, and then we would monitor the situation closely to decide when it can be resumed. As to manpower, as I said, for the upcoming DEP, that can also take care of tenants' needs. As to why we only managed to identify these alteration works now, because in many households, they would also carry out their own decoration works. In some cases, they might have altered the pipes. And we are taking this as an exceptional situation, and therefore we would ask them to say, open the cupboard and also remove or clear some of the items before we can carry out the inspection. In the past, we might not have done it, but then we have deliberately checked on this, and therefore we have managed to identify many such cases. Okay, so in some cases, if we are not able to gain access to those units, then we can do nothing about it. But then in the future, once we are able to accumulate more experience, we would make improvements. For example, we can also provide the layout plan to the workers or to the contractors so that they can also check against the original layout. Well, for the tenant purchase estates, is for the owners incorporated that would be responsible for such repair and maintenance, and everything has to be decided by the OC involved. Okay, next, Mr. Young Wing Kit. Next is Mr. Leung Man Kwong, the Vice Chairman. Yes, thank you. With regard to the TMS of the HA, I support it and I acknowledge the success of it because many tenants' living conditions have been improved under the scheme. But then the housing department should further enhance the scheme. On the one hand, we all know that you have done a lot of work and there are many regular items. So can you come up with a checklist so that tenants can also make reference to that? Well, the initiative is a good one, but then many tenants simply have no idea as to what would be included and what not. And therefore, if you can come up with a checklist, then they will have a better idea as to what would be included under the TMS and what not. So that would give them a better idea as to what they should look for. And then for the U-traps, well, you said that these are in-house or in-flat conditions, and very often you might not be able to identify them. And many households might have carried out decoration works, and they might have altered the pipes. And if you have to do it proactively, not many households would allow you in, because once you are aware of that, they would have to pay extra in order to fix it. Because of the epidemic, we now know that for any damage done to the pipes, that could add to the severity of the epidemic. So instead of having these in-flat pipes, can you do it in the communal system? So can you think about this? So even if it's not on a voluntary basis, if these are all communal external pipes, then it would be a lot easier for you to identify and also fix the problem. Yes, I can also share this with you. I think it's a very good suggestion so that tenants would know what the TMS would cover and what not. I think very often it has to do with the drainage pipes and so on, and also window fixtures and so on. You will also have to understand it, because if there is any damage, the entire window frame can fall out. And therefore, this is also one of the emphasis. So for the more common problems, if we can do it by way of education and publicity, that would also be good. And also, if they can be more forward-looking, if they can always look for certain problems, then they can also do simple checks themselves. As to the U-traps, for the communal traps between two adjacent flats, if it's to be installed externally, is quite a major project, and it would cause a lot of disruption. Because if it's in flat, then it would just take a couple of minutes, let's say 6 minutes, before it can be fixed. And if it's to be installed externally on external walls, it's hard to estimate how long it would take. And the disruption cost to the tenants could also be very serious. We hope that tenants would cooperate with us. We hope that in wake of the epidemic, many tenants are also very concerned about these pipes, and therefore they would be more willing to cooperate. And also because of the scoring system or the scoring or the merit point system, more tenants would also be willing to cooperate with us so that we can complete the program more smoothly. Okay, 5 more members would like to speak. So 4 minutes each. So we might have to extend the meeting by, say, 5 to 10 minutes in order to allow for all those who have indicated that they'd like to speak. We have Mr. Leung Man Kwong, Mr. Lee Chen Kang, Mr. Ng Tao Pak, and also Ms. Kong Yok Foon. So I'll draw a line there, and then we will complete our item on that. Okay, Mr. Leung Man Kwong. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to recognize the efforts by the HA in the TMS, because that would also help improve the living condition for tenants. I think that's a good initiative. On the other hand, I'd like to ask the Housing Department with regard to the TMS for housing estates with different ages. Have you been able to identify the more common problems? Because for those age over 30 years, you do it once every 5 years, and then for those that are younger, you would do it once every 10 years, and would like to revamp the procedures because tenants have been complaining about spalling and also window problems and also pipes. There are different types of problems. And I'd like to get the figures because in the future, in the event that some older estates, let's say 40, 50 years old, when you have to go into the flat to carry out inspections, and if there are common problems, for example, if you're able to identify similar problems within the same housing estates, then I think it's a lot better than you going there to carry out in situ repair and so on. If you're able to identify the more common problems, and if you just do minor repairs here and there, it's not going to help because the cost would be quite high. I'm sure you should have those figures for the older housing estates. If you are able to tell us what exactly are those common problems, then we'd be able to expedite the redevelopment progress of these older housing estates. Yes, for statistics, I do have some with me. I don't know if it helps. For example, for spalling, about 43% of the units have experienced that. And then under the third 5-year program, 35% of the units have this problem. So you can see that the number of such cases has come down. So that might have to do with the quality of works, and also for drainage pipes, it came down from 28% to 25%. But then in some cases, it went up. For example, for window problems. In the past, in the first 5-year plan, there was 6%, and now it went up to 9%, probably. For the screws of the windows and so on, they are aging, and therefore more units would require repair and maintenance works. So that would also give us an indication as to what needs to be done. So I think That's what Mr. Leung was referring to. And then for those older estates, we have also enhanced the works. For example, for those estates older than 40 years, we have adopted 3 timelines. For example, if we are able to go into the units in the early morning hours, then we'll try to go there in the afternoon. And then we have also added in this additional time frame so that we would also visit them again in the evening. So we would be increasing the number of visits and also the different time schedules, so that would be able to cater for the different working styles of these households and so on. Okay.
Suggestion regarding training facilities and also regarding the U-trap and the branch vent pipes. Regarding the branch vent pipes, in the paper, you'll find that 41,000 units have removed the standard branch vent pipes. You say that such alterations are not acceptable. So my question is that since you've discovered these breaches, what are the punishment? I haven't heard that you have imposed any demerit points on these households. Do you also give them a timetable for them to rectify the problem? Because for the U-traps, some professors have stated that the U-traps, I think, is one of the source of infection where the entire blocks of buildings are infected. So how are you going to deal with that problem? And also, unfortunately, there will be another outbreak. Will there be no further such outbreaks after you rectify these U-pipes? Now, I think the U-traps indeed is very important. If they dry up, and if the household switch on the ventilation fan, it's very easy that you have negative pressure, and as a result, the exhaust air will be, will come into the unit, and the virus could be actually attracted or pulled into the indoor environment. So I think both the residents ever have to pay attention to the U-traps and the windows. For new buildings, we have already used the design of the W-traps. They're still U-traps, but they will collect 2 sources of water, one from the water basin and the toilet, because normally when people wash up, they will fill up the water basin. So in the new buildings, there's no problem with the U-traps. The second type of improvement is we're going to add an additional branch vent pipe and connect it to the drainage. So from the water basin, we will have a branch pipe collecting the water from the water basin, so that if the residents forget to, for example, pour water into the pipe, then the water can automatically go down to the U pipe. So this is a preventive measure. But this is not something new. When we talk about the coronavirus, early on we had the SARS epidemic. Why didn't you do all these things at the time? because this is the problem which only happened today. Why did you wait until now to do this? And also, what about penalty for non-compliance? As for penalty, if the resident do not reinstate the vent pipes, have you taken any demerit points of these residents? I think we've only started issuing these warning letters to the households. We need to allow them sufficient time. That means you're not, doing enough. Assistant Director, could you, so regarding Mr. Lee's question as to whether you have issued such letters and what follow-up actions have you taken, could you give us the details in writing after our meeting? Next, Mr. Ng Chao Pak, followed by Madam Wong Yuen-shan. Thank you. Madam Chair, I noticed that if you review the progress of the GMS in the last few years, I think nothing has changed. Back in 2016, the Audit Commission had a report saying that 80,000 units, you're not able to carry out any inspection. That's about 20% of the households. So, and they doubt the efficiency of this scheme. According to the housing department, you've still only be able to gain access to 80% of the households, and 20% of the units have not been inspected. So how can the Housing Authority improve on the situation? The Audit Commission also said that in these repair and maintenance works, 90% of the works have not been satisfactorily performed. For the TMS, the performance of the contractors have not been very good. So for the 80% of those, so how did you arrive at the 80% satisfaction level? Director. Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Ng. I think the access rate at the time of the report, it was not even 80%. So in that report, we've also followed up on some of the recommendations of the Audit Commission. Regarding access to the units, we will cover all the units, and we've selected 3 different time slots to accommodate the residents. And we've also allowed the residents to make bookings. So we've already responded to the recommendation of the Audit Commission. We've also adopted technology. So I think our staff can use a handset and immediately issue work orders for the residents, and also so in the handset, it will show whether the unit have been subject to inspection in the last 2 cycles, and if not, then we would ensure that you will be able to gain access to the residents. As for training, we've also stepped up our training for the in-flat ambassadors or in-flat inspection ambassadors. They do need to have to attend certificate training courses, and we also have in-service training. And it's not just technical training, we also train them in terms of attitudes towards the clients, and we also give them training in terms of how client to service. I've also said that in terms of the quality of the works, we have a 3-tier monitoring system, which I already alluded to earlier in answering Dr. Lowe's question. And in report number 17, for the 14% referred to, it's now down to 5.6%. So there is some improvement already. As how we conduct a survey, we engage an independent consultant who will conduct a survey in their professional manner. For the orders completed in last quarter, we will send all the customers the details to this consultant. They will take a random sample and then interview those clients. Why such a large discrepancy? Well, that report was done in 2016, and the information we give you now are the most updated information or data. So we're talking about two different time period here. Madam Kong Yok-foon, followed by Mr. Chen Yung. Thank you. I have several questions. First of all, regarding the TMS, according to the paper, the Bureau said that they will only help the PRH rent, tenants when it involves some basic facilities. Would you also help the TPS, owners to carry out such, repair works if they pay? In public housing units, many of them are occupied by owners who owners of their own units. So if you do not help them, then it will have an adverse impact on the hygiene of the estate. And you say that you approve a proposal for maintenance of the common areas. What about owners of TMS units? Would they also need to share part of the cost? And will such works be tendered out? And if common areas are involved for these public housing estates, once you have TPS owners, there will be deeds of confidence, deeds of mutual confidence. And so in this case, would you consult the owners corporations? And finally, when it involves the deeds of mutual confidence for the rental units, the housing authority is the owner. Based on the DMS, the housing authority being the owner of these rental units, they have to maintain the units in satisfactory state. If there are certain repairs which are essential, for example, the U-traps. Now, if these are essential repair items, if they're not done properly, it will have an adverse impact on the environment. Then the housing authority, being the owner, cannot wait for the tenants to cooperate. If they don't, then you will wait. Because according to the deed of mutual confidence, the housing authority is the owner, and you have a responsibility. If you cannot do this, then the owners, the TMS owners, can sue the housing authority for violating the DMC. Right at the beginning, when we had the TMS scheme, the owners of the DMS units were already expressing concern about the maintenance and repair of these housing units. Thank you. Well, this is about housing PRH estates with TMS scheme. There are two types of residents. On the one hand, you have the owners who bought their own units, and a certain percentage of the units are leased to the tenants. The housing authority have always all along followed the buildings ordinance and the DMC. In all the repair works involved in the common areas, we will have to follow the DMC. And if the project costs a certain amount, we must call tender. And the owner corporation will have to invite the contractors to do it. The housing authority, as one of the owners, will share, a portion of the costs for such maintenance and repair. So it's just like what is done in other private buildings. You said that you talk about inside the unit. For the rental units, we are the owners. And if the fixtures are subject to normal wear and tear, we would carry out the repair and maintenance, so long as the tenant call up the estate office for fixtures which have been subject to normal wear and tear. We would repair and fix them free of charge for the tenants. Of course, if their own air conditioner breaks down, they will have to pay for it themselves. Okay.
I think I've already answered your question just now with regard to complaints handling. Okay, I just hope that you can work faster so that would be fairer to the households. Next, Mr. Chen Yung. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I think members have asked a lot about this program and also for the direction to take. I think that's also very clear. You have a lot of figures. But then given the development of the epidemic, well, there are more cases in public housing estates when compared to private developments. So have you updated some of the standards, or else it's not going to improve? And also for the communication with tenants, you will have to contact them more in order to ensure that you will be better able to gain access. And then workers, when they go into those flats, they'll be able to do more spot checks and repair works. Yes, thank you. With regard to the number of confirmed cases in public housing estates, well, let me put it this way. Many of the tenants of public housing estates are grassroots, and they would also have to go out to work, and therefore they would also have to stay in the community more often, and therefore they are more susceptible to contracting the Omicron virus. And also for indoor and outdoor work, well, according to our analysis, for those who have been confirmed with the infection, whether or not they contracted the variant in-house or outside, well, there is no clear distinction, because the main reason is that for the Omicron variant is very much airborne and it can be transmitted easily. So when they turn on the ventilation fan, well, because of the U-traps and so on, very often the exhaust gas can also go into another flat very easily, and therefore that would also increase the risk of transmission. That's why we have been reminding tenants that they will have to wear their face mask, and they would also have to attach more importance to the personal hygiene. And we have also issued guidelines as to what they need to do in order to enhance hygiene and so on. Anything to add, Mr. Chan? Yes, well, at the time of the repair in particular, for those households that have carried out alteration, you would also have to issue guidelines to them so that they would know it better. Okay. I think most members have been able to ask questions already. I think we'll wrap up our discussion here. Next item is AOB. We don't have anything under AOB today, and therefore, I think we'll wrap up here. So meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for attending. Thank you.